So your preacher's up there communicating, just exerting themselves, exuding communication and energy and just this relationality from a very public perspective that may just really seem like this person's a people person. It may really seem like this person is an extrovert who is just thriving in the moment, thriving on the energy of the crowd. And oftentimes it's not really the case. A lot of the preachers are actually introverts. This is not maybe like 90%, but over 50% are introverts in ministry, at least from my experience, the people who I've known. So Susan Cain had a definition of introversion and extroversion that's about really where your energy comes from. Extroverts just thrive on being around people. Introverts get drained from being around people. If an introvert's around a crowd of people in a party for hours on end, they're going to go home and crash. An extrovert is going to come home and just be energized, be ready to go. It's not just about someone who just doesn't seem like they enjoy being around people. Introverts can certainly enjoy being around people. It's just that over time, an introvert's energy level will go down. So an introverted preacher, an introverted pastor, can be up in front on Sunday, delivering a message, being energetic, greeting people at the door, all the things that would seem very much like an extrovert. But when they go home, they're going to want to take a nap. They're going to want to just kind of withdraw for a while. They're going to want to kind of get some downtime, some alone time. Your preacher may seem like an extrovert, but that's not necessarily really the case. Well, I'm an introvert. And I went through however many years of training to get into ministry. And even in ministry, the minister has to prepare relentlessly for sermons and lessons. I had one preacher friend who prepared over 30 hours a week on a sermon, okay, which is a lot. Maybe probably too much, could be argued, right? And then you add in Bible classes or small groups. And now, you could be up, if you're at 5-6 hours of prep for these lessons, you could be spending 24 to 28 hours a week in lesson prep and study in the Word, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing. But it lends itself to an introverted personality to thrive on that time, to be able to shut your office door, to be able to tell the office staff, during these times is my study time, please just take a message and lock yourself away. That would absolutely drive an extrovert crazy, not extroversion. And that may explain why a lot of our ministers are kind of like closet introverts, because you see them on Sunday and you watch how they act and you shake their hand, used to. Deep down inside, when that person goes home, they're crashing. They're crashing, they're taking a nap, they're asking for some quiet time, they're taking a bath or something like that, they're going for a walk, they're just getting away and getting out. Now, one of the side things that comes out of that, this is not exactly an introvert-extrovert thing, it's more of a relationality thing, is that a lot of times preachers lack close relationships. They lack close relationships because they're up there giving spiritual advice to the masses, and it's really hard to connect with someone on a personal level when you know that you don't have everything together. It's also really hard to connect with the congregation when you're charged with certain responsibilities that can kind of get blurred a bit when you have close friends in that congregation. It can be hard to do your job well or hard to do it in an objective way when you have close relationships. Now, I do think preachers need close relationships in the church, and I think it's a mistake to not do that. I'm just saying it's a challenge. That's why sometimes it's avoided and sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes the preacher's best friends are outside the congregation rather than inside the congregation. Now, I once had a mentor of mine, whenever I was brand new in ministry, just flat out tell me, do not make friends in the congregation. This is not something that I do. And it turned out that my friend ended up with some real relational difficulties down the road that ended up causing some trouble, and kind of worked through all that. It all ended up okay. But I don't think that's good advice. I think it's highly important for preachers to be relational, for preachers to be loving of people, for preachers to be available to people and to be about people. Ministry is about people. It's a people business, right? Because we're supposed to love God with all of our heart, love our neighbor as ourselves. A lot of preachers also struggle with mental health concerns in their ministry. And there's a lot of reasons for this. A lot of us ministers are codependents. We grew up as maybe children of alcoholic, although that wasn't my situation. Mine was a little different. Or children of depressed or anxious people. Children of people with bipolar or something like that, where there are just demands placed on the system that end up having an individual want to enter the helping professions and help people on the most deep spiritual level possible. And so it's very easy then for there to be some ego involved in that, for us to say, I have the expertise to help you on the deepest level possible, right? And if I'm then not able to help you in the way that I think I should be able to help you, if my sermons aren't changing your life, if my counseling's not changing your life, if my Bible class is not revolutionary, then a lot of preachers, a lot of pastors are highly self-critical because they're codependent and they're enmeshed with people in the congregation. And so when the congregation doesn't come around, then they feel like it's a direct assault or attack on their own personal value or the value of their ministry. And it's hard for them to differentiate between their own identity and their own responsibility for that change and the responsibility of the individuals in the congregation to turn those corners in their own lives. So a lot of preachers are highly self-critical. So you also see in ministry a lot of addiction. You see a lot of dependency. You see a lot of pornography use. You see a lot of chemical dependency. And that comes down to this last point, which is mental health concerns. There's a high degree of mental health issues that really come into ministry because you are engaged and involved in people in the deepest areas of their life. You are with them in their weddings, you're with them in their funerals, you marry them, you bury them, you counsel them, you watch lives fall apart regardless of the best advice possible, and it can just be downright depressing. And you take that and multiply that by 500 people in a congregation, and now all of a sudden you also have 500 people who are like your boss, who are constantly judging you, who are constantly critical of you, you feel like, or one little remark is said or not said, and it can make or break a preacher's day because a lot of preachers are very highly self-critical, self-conscientious, and are, again, deeply enmeshed emotionally with the congregation. And so that leads to some mental health issues. So 34% of ministers have said, based on a study that I did in 2017 with quite a few ministers asking them about mental health and ministry, among other things, 34% of them said that ministry itself resulted in significant mental health issues. Okay. Barna, in that same year in 2017, did a report on pastors in the United States, and they found that nearly half of pastors in the United States suffered from some level of depression within their ministry. Okay. So that's maybe somewhat in line with the general population. It's kind of getting close to that, but that's pretty high. Now, I will say on the flip side that ministers also give a very high level of job satisfaction, higher than Christians on average and higher than the general population of U.S. adults. Preachers in America, pastors in America report like a 92% or life satisfaction, quality of life satisfaction, whereas with just Christians at large, it's like 78%, and Americans, adults in the United States, like 62%. It's like 91% of preachers, pastors in America report a high quality of life satisfaction with their quality of life. So there's a lot of blessing that comes with ministry because, again, along with the depression that can come from burying people is also the joy that comes from celebrating with people, the joy that comes from studying with people and watching them enter into life with Christ. It's some of the highest highs that you can possibly experience, but with the highest highs also can come some of the lowest lows. And so what my message is for you, if you're not a preacher, you're not a pastor, you're not a church leader, is to be gracious to your people, to be gracious to your leadership. It is such a thankless job, and it needs to be recognized. It needs thanks. It has lost positional authority within American culture. It has been taken out of the center of society, the center of the town, community. The church is no longer in the middle. The town is no longer built around that cathedral. So we need to be thankful for people who take on positions of leadership because they're highly stressful positions. These are very difficult jobs, very thankless jobs. And yes, there's a high quality of life and enjoyment of those things and acknowledgement of those things. There can also be some really deep lows for our ministers. So yes, there's a preacher, pastor, appreciation month, but be mindful of those people throughout the year. Pray for them by name daily. Lift them up in prayer. Ask God to guard them from mental illness. Now, the stress of ministry can be great. And when I asked ministers about their next job, 63% of them said that they've considered leaving ministry for good, and 56% said their next employment will not be with a congregation. Okay? Again, love them well. Treat them well. Show them respect. Honor them. Do things for them. Just write them a nice note. Send them a gift card to their favorite restaurant. So just love them well and let them know you care. And you say, well, they know I care. I come to church every week. Well, they don't know until you tell them. They may think your silence is that you don't like them because, again, ministers can be very self-critical and very sensitive to all kinds of things. So let's love each other well. Let's be there for each other, and let's help each other thrive in this Christian walk. And hope it's helpful. God bless you. Love you. Please subscribe if this has been helpful to you, and we'll see you next time.